Good morning, it's the Christian Conservative Gamer here, and welcome back to Left 4 Dead. Unfortunately, because I played the single player on version on the last time I played Left 4 Dead. It means that it basically means that my progress doesn't get saved, so I'm gonna have to basically jump straight into the next chapter after the other one. But I know where I last left off. I was now entering the sewers after the subway, but now we're in the sewers, and this is going to be fun for me, and hopefully you get a kick out of it. So let's do this. Into the subway we go. Oh yeah. I only woke up like about 30 minutes ago. Well, actually more than 30 minutes ago. I'm about 5 minutes late. But never mind that. I think I want to do. Okay, are we all ready? Do you have everyone's all got? Let's go. Yeah, it's not happening, guys. Not happening.
Reloading! Should be a way up ahead.
It's a shot box. Sorry that I'm not talking much, it's just... Hey, coming at me.
Reloading!
Something about Molotov. Oh, there's Molotov. Nah, you're not getting me tonight. But this morning. Oh, he's alive. Wait, he was alive. He does not have any testicles anymore. I believe we had to go through here. Oh, I don't know. Gotcha.
Grabbing a pipe bomb.
Oh, that was a pipe bomb. What is? I thought that said peel. Yeah. Really? The bet we started? Okay. So where do I go? Oh! I found where the hospital is. Don't go through that way. Ooh! Oh dear.
Reloading!
Oh! There's a smoke drop on. Oh dear. I am not looking forward to this. There was a smoke drop on the roof.
Reloading!
Yeah, let's get rid of all these evil zombies. Ow. I keep pressing the C key, which means the chat.
Reloading!
Oh, the smoker's dead.
Reloading!
It's hard for me to really talk. That's yeah.
Reloading!
Get out of my way, man! I was trying to save the lady. Oh dear.
Reloading!
Sorry.
Get on the lift!
I saw lots of zombies just spawn up there. And there they come. Oh dear. Oh dear.
Fire in the hole!
Oh dear. God. Let's all get hammered. Where's my cat?
Reloading!
These zombies are everywhere. Okay, I'm ready to play. Oh, I do. I think it's time to go, people. There's too many of them.
Molotov!
Where's he gone? Oh! And I'm running low on bullets. Oh!
Ammo here!
Thank goodness for that.
Little pick-me-up. Pipe bomb!
I like my pipe bombers more than I like my Molotovs. Molotovs are good, but the thing, the problem I got with like the Molotovs is that they expand
Pills
too
here.
much.
Through the warehouse!
I don't think I was.
Reloading!
Yeah, you're not grabbing one of us. Silent, but it's surely. Did you hear that? We're screwed. Oh no!
Reloading! Reloading!
And I believe that's the way we've got to go as well.
Shh! Switch near here.
doesn't. Just don't look at her, she won't kill you. Oh! Oh! Again, absolutely damn. She's killed me! I died! Are you kidding me? Oh, you kidding me? Oh no. Oh, that is so harsh. Oh dear. Okay, I'm gonna do something. Well, what I'm gonna do now then is that I'm gonna do something else, and but it's gonna be all part of one video actually. No, I won't make one video. I'll make them two separate. I'll cut it out to get through all the process. But yeah, I thought that was interesting. If you like the content that I make for you, you can always like my videos. You can share my videos. You can subscribe to my channel, and if you want to help keep this channel alive, advertiser free and uncensored, then I would suggest that you go and become a patron, because obviously YouTube's new policy is literally destroying some of the more established channels on YouTube, right? Basically no longer allowing them to swear and all that stuff because they get demonetized. I like to think some of them channels are bending the knee just so they can get all that YouTube money, but with me I prefer to appeal directly to my audience, which is you. But anyways, let me go into what I wanted to also do today as well. So I cannot believe I got slaughtered there. My goodness. It wasn't my fault. Some fat bugger just came out of nowhere and just covered me all in his disgusting bile. And then that obviously started a witch. It wasn't me. It was the fat man who did it. Ugh. So unfair. Unnecessary. Anyway, time for the second phase of this video, which is for you to see where I stand in my politics. So let's do this. And we're here. Now, I wanted to do one for more publicly because of well, those who have been Patreon went through a more intense political test, and I'll be able to show you it right here, just quickly. I'll do a quick little look, because based upon what I've chosen, I am considered a right-wing libertarian on the basis of my decisions and what I voted for. But that's how it seems on my part, at least. On that. So with that in mind, I want to do something I want to see with this political compass if I still am a right-wing libertarian. It's funny because I'm a Christian and I'm conservative in my values, but I guess the world is a bit upside down nowadays. Hopefully this doesn't take too long. I don't want this to take out all my time. So let's get through it. I wanted to do something a little different today because think of it as just me expanding my direction to see what people think. Just a few propositions to start with concerning no less to see the country and the world. How do you see the country and the world? Well, that depends on the country. If economic globalization is inevitable, it should primarily serve humanity rather than the interests of transnational corporations. Well, while I'm not a big fan of globalization, I do agree with that statement that if globalization is to become, a major thing, then it should benefit everybody instead of a few, like the major corporations. So I agree with that slightly. Doesn't mean I agree with it. I'd always support my country whether it was right or wrong. I strongly disagree. There are many things that my country has done that are terrible, and I don't agree with it. But anything that my country has done, I agree with. Have done that I believe is morally right. Then yeah, I will agree. Then I would agree, support my country in those regards, but I won't support it blindly out of complete loyalty. Because that's just stupid to do. That's like tribalistic, and I'm not a tribalist. No one chooses his or her country by birth, so it's foolish to be proud of it. Well, I agree. I do agree that we don't choose our country of birth, but I disagree on the premise that just because you're born in a country doesn't mean you can't be proud of it. So, I mean, my country, for example, ain't exactly showing much good to the world, especially the way our politicians are handling nonsense. But it doesn't mean that I'm not proud of my country's history and some of the things that we have done in the past that should be commended. But there's always something about one's country that someone should be proud of. It doesn't matter if it's one little thing. Our race has many superior qualities compared with other races. Strongly disagree. I believe that it actually comes down to one's values that defines what's superior instead of what one's race is. I mean, you can be from somewhere like China, but if you move to somewhere like the United States, then you will have the opportunity to do extremely well for yourself and become successful. Whereas in China, if you're born into like a farming family, like in a family of farmers, then you're not going to be able to progress well in your life, especially under the kind of under the Chinese regime, because of how it's all set up there. I mean, in my country, it's quite hard for someone, say myself, who comes from a working class family, to actually do well in life, especially in my country, merely because, whether or not our politicians and people want to admit it, but we still live in a relatively caste system society. Whereas like your position, your prospects in life is defined by your, basically how you're born and what class you're in. That's a problem that this country has, is a class problem. And I think, and me personally, I think the best way to deal with that would be to basically encourage and endorse the ideas of individual liberties. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. I strongly disagree. You can still be enemies with someone who happens to be enemies of someone that you're enemies with. For example, I mean, Germany may not be, I wouldn't look at Germany as much of a friend, even though we have a common enemy, which is those who are against like NATO and some of the values that we in the West enjoy. I wouldn't say all of it, because much of what the West enjoys in terms of its values are slowly dwindling away. Thank you, you politically correct individuals. But doesn't mean that just because you have a common enemy, doesn't mean that the person who's a common enemy is basically a friend. Military action that defies international law is sometimes justified. Well, that depends on the on what needs to be done. I mean, if your country's being attacked, but the international law requires that you don't defend yourself, then obviously in those circumstances, I believe that you have the right to defend yourself, and therefore military action, and in order to defend yourself in that regards, means you would have to defy the law. there are some laws out there that shouldn't exist, but there are others that do for a certain reason. While I do not endorse violence or conflicts or any acts of war, to a certain extent, when all other options of finding peace and dealing with things diplomatically have pretty much no longer work, then the only outcome is conflict, military action. So it's not the option I take lightly, but it's the one that I can understand why, to some extent, you may have to defy international law to do what is morally the right thing to do. There is now a growing fusion of information and entertainment. I strongly agree, personally. I look at that more in the circumstances of things like, movies with subtle political or political messaging and things like that, trying to endorse a political agenda onto the people, very subtly. I look at works like James Cameron's Avatar as an example of a very politically motivated movie. Because when you start mixing things like that together, that becomes propaganda. But as for information, I do think that a lot of information nowadays is being pumped into people's lives through entertainment. It could be things like games or films or shows and any other kind of things. People are ultimately divided more by class than by nationality. I guess that solely depends on where you're on the country. I mean, in my country, we're multicultural, so we've got different cultures. It's complicated. I disagree because I think there's more than because I think class does play a role, but in a multicultural society, one's nationality does get in the way, especially when you have certain groups of individuals from certain places that stick with their people or the same kind of common value, which would be basically the nationality, especially in Europe and the UK. In our country, we're basically divided by class and nationality. From a personal perspective, of course, I can't say that for everyone and everywhere. Controlling inflation is more important than controlling unemployment. Well, that's the thing. I'm going to say disagree. Only because such things, I generally don't think that any government force or any state can really control. Not really, because it all depends on what you're buying in. If you want to control inflation, then the only way I can see that happening is if you solely sell products that have been made solely in your own country, instead of like bringing over the raw materials from overseas and producing the products, or buying products from overseas. It all comes down to the value of the resources and the materials and stuff like that is used in the product. So, if in one place things are getting more expensive and they sell it overseas, then obviously that can mean higher price on your part, because you had to pay more to buy it in, which means you got to sell it at higher than you paid it in to make a profit. So, and that is one of the causes of inflation. Is that in certain places that some things are just more expensive than anywhere else, and therefore that does play a role in inflation. But I'd also believe that state falls or government falls cannot control unemployment. Unemployment to me is more of one's choice whether or not they choose to go to work or not, as well as if someone gets fired from their job. A government cannot expect a company to or tell a government or tell a company that they have to keep that person on in the job. They can't do that, especially if it's a private business, because if they go along that route, well, that's just plain totalitarian, and I detest that strongly. Because corporations cannot be trusted to voluntarily protect the environment, they require regulations. I disagree. The only reason I disagree is that I believe that no one is beyond redemption, and that while I understand that there should be some regulations, I generally do believe that in time, if the people are demanding for things like renewable energy or more environmental friendly products and stuff like that, and the business are sincere about wanting to make money, then they would switch over to more environmental friendly products, because if that's what the public demands, then the business cannot suffice solely on the basis that they're running the business for, well, their target audience, and the target audience, the consumers, happens to be your everyday general public. So like I say, you don't need the government to enforce certain regulations to make businesses to protect the environment. If anything, I think that should come down to public to the public to really make a case for it. Yeah, but I don't think any form of government control is good. From each according to his ability to each according to his needs is fundamentally a good idea. No, just no. Because we are not driven by needs, we are driven by wants and desires. And you cannot suppress one's desires, because that's just... Because what that seems to state is like, you can only have one car, one TV, one house, because quite frankly, that is all you need. It's like, yeah, but I want 2 cars. No, you can't have 2 cars. You have to have just one, because that's all you need. You only need just 1 car. But I want 2 cars. You're not gonna get 2 cars, because we say communism. It's terrifying. I know. Don't worry about it. I mean, this is all light-hearted, anyways. I'm always trying to make things light-hearted. It's a sad reflection on our society that something as basic as drinking water is now bottled, branded consumer products. Well, I agree to a certain extent. I also disagree on what it's trying to state, only on the basis that you say that it's sad that something as basic as drinking water is now a bottled, branded consumer product. I'm not thinking, well, first things first, someone had to pick up that water from like a river or something, or a stream or a lake. Then they had to spend money on facilities to purify and filter out all the bad parts from the water, so you get clean, drinkable water. And you're not going to get any issues with and you know that because that it's clean, because it's been produced. I mean, it's much more safer to drink from a bottle of water than it is to drink from a river or a lake. And it's even safer than drinking from tap water, because you got dependent on your pipelines, It depends on all the gunk that is built up inside your pipelines, which can, well, have problems. So, no. I don't think it's a sad reflection on our society. Because that's like saying that it's sad that we have to buy beef or meat from a shop in order to live, because we are omnivores. And it's like, well, someone had to breed the animals, feed it so it grows up to be healthy, pay for all its medications and all that stuff to ensure that it stays healthy, and then obviously take it to a factory to be processed into food, and then they have to make sure that that is ready and healthy to eat. So it's, again, just like it's just it's not a sad reflection. It's just people have the right to make money for their hard work. Land shouldn't be a commodity to be bought and sold. I strongly disagree. And the reason I strongly disagree is because people need somewhere to live. And if you buy land, and the good thing about buying land is that because it's your land, you dictate what can happen on that piece of land. So you can decide if someone has the right to step on your land or not. It is regrettable that many personal fortunes are made by people who simply manipulate money and contribute nothing to society. To a certain extent, yes, I agree with that. There are people out there who have made their money without basically earning it. And I strongly believe in one must earn their money. Protectionism is sometimes necessary in trade, to a certain extent, as a leverage to ensure that you can then negotiate your way down to a free trade agreement. And yes, sometimes you may need to have a protectionist tendency, because if you're trading with a country that wants to put tariffs on you, you can't just agree with that and still give them something tariff free, because it's like, hold on, we want a free trade with you, so you throw on tariffs on them of equal or greater, so then they end up, so you can take them to the negotiation table to either reduce the tariffs or completely get rid of the tariffs and just have a tariff-free trade deal. So to a certain extent, it's necessary. The only social responsibility of a company should be to deliver a profit to its shareholders. I disagree. The social responsibility, not only is it for them to make themselves money, but also to ensure that the consumers, the customers, are happy with the products that they're selling. It's called mutual benefit. If you're not benefiting your customers, then you're gonna end up losing money when they stop buying from you. Something that some people just don't understand, especially when it comes about wanting to tax the wealthy. And that's interesting. That comes down to our next question. The rich are too highly taxed. I agree. 45%. But then again, I think that everyone, regardless of your economic position in life, is too highly taxed. Because I believe in lower taxes. In lower taxes, so which means that people have more money in their pockets. Now, of course, the concept of wanting lower taxes in the UK is considered taboo because we are so religious over our National Health Service. It's like a cult. But one of my arguments about the National Health Service, I cannot say yet whether or not something like abortion is actually covered under the NHS. If it is, then I really want to opt out of the National Health Service on the basis that, as a Christian, I believe that abortion is morally wrong. And why should my taxes pay for someone to have an abortion when I fundamentally disagree with with that concept. Which is why I'm for private healthcare, because at least I know what I'm paying for, and that is out of my money. So therefore, I know what I'm getting. That's interesting because, once again, something relating to medical, but completely different. But all I'm saying is, I don't believe that I should pay taxes for things that I fundamentally disagree with. I believe that I should be allowed to opt out of paying taxes for things that I disagree with on a fundamental level, period. If I'm not for abortions, then why should I pay taxes for someone to have an abortion? It just makes no sense. It's basically violating my own morals, and I detest it strongly. Those with the ability to pay should have high access to higher standards of medical care. Well, yeah, if you got the money, then you deserve to have. If you got the money, then you deserve to get what you pay for. If you pay more into something, then you should get more and better standards. But then again, not everything that is highly expensive is necessarily better standards. Most people might call me elitist for that one, because it's like, well, why should someone who pays more get better treatment? Because they paid more. Duh. Government should penalise businesses that mislead the public. While I do detest businesses that mislead the public, especially when it comes to a product, saying, oh yeah, this is a good product, then you buy it and then it's completely not what they advertise it as, then yeah, I understand that you know, that's bad. But do I think government should penalise them? No, because I still believe that if you don't like the business practice of a company or a business, then you just don't buy from them. So I disagree, because I don't want the government to. I mean, I wouldn't want the government get involved in my business affairs. But it's not just that. It's like mislead the public. Well, who would you cite? Who? But that can open the door. Some people claiming that a business has lied to them about what the products they bought and things like that. It's like, it's very hard to have a counter case, or to really have a case to question whether or not business has misled somebody, when some people may use that opportunity to shut businesses down that are genuine, but those individuals lie about those businesses and smear them into claiming that they misled them and things like that. So, you know, it creates a very dangerous precedent of the direction of what may happen. At least to me, this is all opinion based. A genuine free market requires restrictions on the ability of predatory multinationals to create monopolies. Yes, because a free market means that no one should be bought up to reduce competition. Free market is all about competition. The freer the market, the freer the people. Well, that depends on what kind of market it is. I mean, over 200 years ago, there was a slave market, and certainly there weren't and that was as free a market as you could ever get. But that doesn't mean the people involved were necessarily free. So I disagree with that. While I am for free markets, it's hard to say whether or not that people will be equally as free. They're without checks and balances, because it's like that can open the doors to the return of slavery or indentured servitude or child labour and all that stuff, and you know, it's not right. Abortion, when a woman's life is not threatened, should always be illegal. Now, this is where my religious morals come in, but because I also believe in the separation of church and state, I say that a woman who aborts a child is morally wrong. But I wouldn't legislate a law that violates one individual liberty. But then again, it depends on it does depend on the country you're in, and if it's against the law for someone, and how do I put this? Many people believe in the right to life, which means that denying one's right to life is basically an illegal act. Especially, and it's like, it's hard to, I don't know, because as a Christian, I absolutely detest abortions, and it terrifies me that there are some Christian groups that are now starting to accept abortions as a moral good, and I'm not thinking that's terrible. Who could agree with that? But at the same time, when it comes to the national laws, as someone who believes in individual liberties, I believe someone has the right to do what they want, as long as they're not violating someone else's rights. So it's complicated on that part, and the reason I say it's complicated because technically aborting a child is violating that child's right to actually have the same opportunities as you and me. But at the same time, I'm gonna agree, but I'm agreeing merely on moral grounds, merely on my own morality. Not because of a real political sense, because in my political sense, which is something that which is in my other political compass thing, which was a bit more in depth. I put pro-life because I am pro-life, but that doesn't mean. But it didn't say whether or not that abortion should be legal or illegal. It just asked me if I was pro-life or pro-choice. All authority should be questioned. Absolutely. An eye for an eye, and a tooth for a tooth. I disagree on certain things, because I don't think that it's justified. For example, say that if someone stole from you, it is not morally justified to take from them, in terms of like steal something from them to make it even. That's just morally wrong. You don't do that. Taxpayers should not be expected to prop up any theatres or museums that cannot survive on a commercial basis. To a certain extent, I agree. I mean, while it probably is a bad thing to disagree with that, because I do believe that culture is everything for a nation, but I think that this is asking any theatres or museums that cannot survive on commercial basis. Now, when I hear the word commercial basis, the first thing that pops in my head is that, so it's a privately owned venue and not a public owned venue. If it's like a public museum or a public theatre, something paid by the taxes, then it should not have any commercial basis. Not really. Whereas a private business, obviously they are there for commercial reasons. So yeah, if it was a privately owned museum or theatre, then yes, us taxpayers shouldn't pay to keep them up or keep them open. You just fund public museums and theatres. Schools should not make classroom attendance compulsory. Strongly agree, because I believe that if a school is teaching something that you disagree with, you should have the option of either send your kid to another school, or homeschooling your kid, or whatever other options. I do believe that homeschool should be an option. In my country, that seems to be not an option. Well, it is an option, but very small number of people seemingly does it, unless you're like very wealthy. Apparently, allegedly. All people have their rights, but it is better for all of us that different sorts of people should keep to their own kind. Strongly disagree. You're not going to defeat bad ideas by segregating people to be into like separate groups. I mean, for example, a group of Nazis, you start segregating them away from the the public conversation, they will meet other Nazis like themselves, and all they're doing is just radicalizing themselves even further because instead of hearing differing opinions and views, you can't dilute their ideology or make them and try and convince them to be talked out of their ideology. So it's not a good thing to segregate people on the base to their own groups, because to me that is what makes things worse, not better. You want to make sure that everyone is involved in the conversation. That way people can hear different ideas and maybe they won't be so radical in their views. Good parents sometimes have to spank their children. I agree, because I believe in that there are certain things in which a child has to be disciplined for if they do something wrong. Praise them when they do good. Discipline them when they do something extremely bad. It's natural for children to keep some secrets from their parents. Me personally, I disagree on that. And the reason I disagree is that if you raise your child to be honest and truthful, but also at the same time with doing it in a means that is genuine, compassionate and fair, then you're more likely to end up have a child that is not going to keep any secrets from you. I cannot see anything being naturally hidden or kept a secret. I can't see it. So there's always I believe there's always a purpose in something. And if you happen to be keeping secrets, then that is driven by a certain purpose or reason to keep a secret. It's not natural. Not possessing marijuana for personal use should not be a criminal offence. I agree. If you're using it in your own home, then who am I to tell you what you can or can't do? Now, why I'm not a big fan of legalising drugs like cannabis or marijuana. I can't say that word. Us Brits have a problem with saying marijuana, so we just say cannabis or weed. But yeah, if you do it in your own home, then no harm, no foul. But out in the general public, then that's where I end up having disagreements with. The prime function of schooling should be to equip the future generation to find jobs. To a certain extent, yes. I think that it is beneficial for children to learn how to, learn certain things in order for them to get jobs. However, I slightly agree on the basis that at the same time, children should also have the opportunities to branch out into certain fields, especially like the cultural fields and cultural areas, cultural based areas as well, like art, media, and all that stuff. Because that may be something that they want to do as a job in the future. Because it really comes down to what you would, it's like, this has always been something that seems to be a clash with some people of what constitutes as a job. Something that is practical, like being a plumber or mechanic or welder, or something that is like along the lines of like journalism, media, game development, and all that stuff. Some people say that when it comes to the things that I do, because not only do I do videos, but I also do 3D modeling animations. Some people would argue that that isn't a real job, because all you're doing is just sitting there and let the computer do all the work. Okay. But I could counter and say, okay, but you say you're working in a factory. Well, you're letting the machine do the job for you instead of you manually working on the product yourself. So don't start giving me that nonsense. Nonsense. A job is, to me, a job is something that you're paid to do, and I am being paid to do this. So, in that regards, that to me constitute as a job. People with serious inheritable disabilities should not be allowed to reproduce. Strongly disagree. People should have the same opportunities as anyone else, regardless of their disabilities. That is just so extremely immoral to suggest that people with disabilities should not be allowed to have children. Absolutely not. That's just wrong on so many levels. Because that's like saying, because I've got Asperger's, I'm not allowed to have kids. Get out. Nah. That is, to me, that is too fascist to even suggest that or even to agree with that. Because isn't that what the Nazis did in World War II? They basically dehumanized Jews, which basically kind of gives that impression that there's something wrong with them, that they shouldn't be allowed to reproduce, and that's why they went out to exterminate over 6 million Jews in World War II. No, I can't agree with that kind of principle. The most important thing for children is to learn to accept discipline. To a certain extent, yes, they need to know that they can't always have everything in life. You can do your best to try and achieve what you want in life, but do not expect to actually get it. And the only way you can fully accept that in your life, you have to have some form of discipline. Because without discipline, then you're basically going to crumble. You're going to crumble and shatter because you're like thinking, oh no. And then you end up being on the floor crying your eyes out because you don't know what to do. You have to learn to have discipline in order to actually stand strong and actually face things and accept it. There is no savage and civilized peoples. There are only different cultures. Well, yeah, I agree. But some civilizations and cultures are better than others. That's just a fact. But I do agree that you can't just consider certain places as savage. I mean, that's or civilized. I mean, that's subjective among each people. I mean, for example, some of the more native tribes may think that we're uncivilized because of the way we live our life without like order or authority or anything like that. Whereas there are other, or we see people like native some people who see certain native tribes, especially those that believed in sacrifice and cannibalism, we see them as savages. It works both ways. I mean, we have that problem now within our own communities between atheists and Christians, or the religious community and the secular community. So the religious community believe that we are more civilized and more moralistic than those who are not religious. Now, I personally disagree with that. I disagree on that premise. I'll be the first to condemn the religious community for claiming that they are self-righteous and righteous. You can still be moralistic without having a belief in a God. I just happen to be someone who believes in God. But there are some good people who don't agree, who do not believe in God, they do have good morals and good values and principles. Those who are able to work and refuse the opportunity should not expect society's support. Absolutely agree. If you choose not to, if you refuse the opportunity to work, and when I say refuse the opportunity, I mean like literally saying, I don't want to do, no, I'm not doing that job. Then it's like, well, then don't expect society to help you. No, of course not. You need to learn to stand on your own feet. And while I do believe that you should pursue the jobs that you want to do, instead of being forced into a job that you have no skills in, then by all means you aim for what you want to do. But when there's something that you know that you can do and that you got the skills for, but you choose not to go for it, then you shouldn't be getting any help. When you are troubled, it's better not to think about it, but to keep busy with more cheerful things. I disagree, because I believe that it's important to talk about something that is bothering you. Because if you keep it bottled up, and I know this from personal experience because I've been in this position myself, it's not a good feeling. It's not a good feeling to bottle certain things to, hide troubles, because eventually they will start showing. And in the long term, it's a lot worse to keep if you hold it in than it is if you let it out in the immediate period. It's better to be honest about it and say something then, and suffer the short-term consequences. But it leads to long-term happiness. Then it is to hold something in for a long time, which may give you some short-term gain by long-term consequences. I'll look at that on the basis of saying, like, if you cheat on your partner, it's better to tell your partner that you cheated then and there, instead of keeping it a secret, because the truth will always catch up. That's a fact. First generation immigrants can never fully integrate within their new country. I strongly disagree. I mean, technically, the only reason I say that is because a first generation immigrant is someone who's like first person who's actually moves to another country, and and you can move to a country practically at any age. So, for example, say that if and when I want to go and live and work in the United States, I'll be considered a first generation immigrant, because I'll be the first of my family to actually immigrate to the United States. And I'm part of, so that makes me first generation. I'm only 26. So if the first generation immigrant is of a young age, then it is extremely likely that you'll be able to assimilate them a lot better than someone who's like in their 60s or 70s who's lived practically a lifetime. What's good for most successful corporations is always ultimately good for all of us. No, absolutely not. It depends of how they got that success. If they got it through egotistical means by treading all over other people, then no, that's not good. No broadcasting institution, however independent its content, should receive public funding. I agree. I mean, I'm not a big fan of the BBC because they seem to be pumping out flipping stuff that I personally disagree with, and my taxes pay for that? Pfft, absolutely not. Our civil liberties are being excessively curbed in the name of counter-terrorism. I strongly agree. How long have I been recording for? Over an hour. Wow, this is going to be a very long video. Well, forgive me. But, you know, this was something that I wanted to do. But, so that's my choice. But yes, I do agree. Our civil liberties are being curbed in the name of counter-terrorism. We're losing our liberties for security. And as Benjamin Franklin once said, that if you do that, then we deserve neither of it. A significant advantage of a one-party state is that it avoids all arguments that delay progress in a democratic political system. Well, they're not exactly wrong, but I agree with that statement, but that doesn't mean I actually agree with the political system. Or the governing system. I mean, look at China. It has a one-party state, and again, everything their way, and they're trying to enforce that now onto Hong Kong, which I strongly disagree with and condemn. I believe Hong Kong should remain a free, independent territory. Because I actually believe what China seems to be doing down there is in complete violation of the agreement that China and United Kingdom has signed and agreed to. So I'm a bit concerned that my country has failed to get involved in relation to Hong Kong, personally, but that's me. Although the electronic age makes official surveillance easier, only wrongdoers need to be road. Strongly disagree. My argument is, I mean, this is like the leftist argument here. If you're doing nothing wrong, then why should you care if you're being monitored? I'll tell you why. It's called privacy. I wouldn't want someone, one day could just turn on my flipping webcam one day and just see me in bed with my woman. That's just morally sick. The death penalty should be an option for the most serious crimes. Personally, I agree. But ultimately, the punishment should come down to the family who are affected by the crime. In a civilized society, one must always have people above to be obeyed and below to be commanded. No, strongly disagree. I strongly disagree because that's basically endorsement of saying that we need a king and everyone is the servants of the king. Whereas in my country, it seems that Parliament thinks this way anyways. They think that they are above the people, when if anything, Parliament is our servants, and they are pretty much in violation of that political declaration at the moment in relation to Brexit. Abstract art that doesn't represent anything shouldn't be considered art at all. I disagree because it's all subjective, but me personally, I'm not a big fan of abstract art. It makes no sense to me. Really don't. It makes no sense to me. So I don't consider it art, but others will. So in criminal justice, punishment should be more important than rehabilitation. It depends on the crime. I will say slightly agree because I believe that it depends on the crime that was committed. I mean, if you murder somebody, then I'm sorry, but I'm not. Then I don't believe rehabilitation is the ideal thing for them. They have to basically serve their time. It is a waste of time to try to rehabilitate some criminals. I disagree. Because no one is beyond redemption. But that doesn't mean that no one's beyond redemption, but at the same time, I do believe that if you have committed serious crimes, then you should be punished for it. The business person and the manufacturer are more important than the writing artist. I disagree. I think that if anything, they are just two different professions. Where they are the completely different professions. And are equally as important. Mothers may have careers, but the first duty is to be homemakers. Oh dear, we're getting a feminist question here. Ugh. Well, me personally, I'm more traditional when it comes to a family structure. As in, I believe that when it comes to family structure, I believe that it should be one parent working and the other one stays at home. To make the house keep the house tidied and clean, and looking decent. So the only reason I disagree with this statement is because I do believe that if a woman wants to pursue a career, that's their choice. But me personally, I wouldn't date a woman that chooses career over family. But that's me. Multinational companies are unethically exploiting the plant genetic resources of developing countries. I disagree. Because after all, I disagree because some of them may be getting consent from those developing countries to actually use those resources. Making peace with the establishment is an important aspect of maturity. Maybe it is, but it depends. It depends on whether or not they will actually listen. So I disagree on that basis. Astrology accurately explains many things. I disagree. Even though when I'm reading through the papers, I like to read through the astrology, so I know exactly what my one says. You cannot be moral without being religious. I disagree. It depends on whether or not it depends on the values of one's country. I mean, United States may have a major Christian population. However, there are some there who aren't religious but are still good people because they follow because they believe and agree with the Constitution of the United States of America. Which I do believe that the Constitution is moral. So, charity is better than social security as a means of helping generally disadvantaged. I agree, only because I think that with charity is more important. But I think it's better to give someone what they need, in terms of in a charitable way, than it is to just give someone money, because it's like when it comes to I look at this when it comes to some people who are homeless. Not all of them, but there are some who are homeless, but that may be because they either have they either lost their job, which is unfortunate, and those are people who are generally in need. But then there are some who are on the streets because they either are heavy gamblers or they spend too much money. So basically, to me, it comes down to how trustworthy is an individual with money. When it comes to a homeless person, if it was the choice to give him money or to give him something to eat, I'll give him something to eat. Because I don't know if I give him money, that they might go and spend it on something like booze or cigarettes or anything like that. Something that ain't gonna help him. Some people are naturally unlucky. I strongly disagree because I don't believe in luck. Everything's got a purpose. So if you're down, if things ain't going well in your life, then you may have to either look at something that you're doing, or maybe just your current position, or what you're doing, instead of just or look at, look for the evidence, look for trying to figure out why something just doesn't go the way that you wanted it to go. Because I cannot believe that there is luck when everything seemingly happens for a reason. It is important that my child's school instills religious values. Now, this is asking me personally. Me personally, I agree. But I also would like my child to also be able to have the opportunity to see things outside of the religious faith. That way they will be able then to make their own minds up in the future. Number 6. Sex outside marriage is usually immoral. I disagree. It depends on how you want to look at it. If you're not a religious person, then, you can have sex whenever you want. A same-sex couple in a stable, loving relationship should not be excluded from the possibility of child adoption. I agree. If it's stable and everything's is all fine, then they shouldn't have the opportunity to basically, have a child, adopt a child. Pornography depicting consenting adults should be legal for the adult population. Well, yeah. I mean, because it's consenting. What goes on in a private bedroom between consenting adults is no business of the state. Strongly agree. Because, like with the top one, if it's adults, I like that it doesn't say two consenting adults. It just says consenting adults. That can be more than two. But either way, I still agree that what one does in their own bedroom is their business and no one else's business. No one can feel naturally homosexual. I disagree. Because the only reason I disagree is that there's always a reason for something. But this is one that I cannot personally explain, because I'm not thinking, is it more natural to be heterosexual, or more natural to be, or is homosexual or homosexuality natural? I can't give an answer personally, because the last thing I want to do is, have my religious values preached upon everybody. I don't want to preach my religion on other people. I mean, if you're homosexual, that's down to you. I don't accept it, but I'm tolerant of homosexuality, of people being homosexual. I'm tolerant of homosexual as well. I just don't accept it. Big difference. Because acceptance means that, because the difference between being tolerant of something and being accepting of something. Being tolerant means that it's there, you don't agree with it, but you acknowledge that it's there, and therefore, you just live and let live. Whereas acceptance means that it's there and you actually agree with it. Well, I don't agree with abortions, but I have to be tolerant of individuals who choose to do it. But I don't agree with it, and I don't accept it. It's the same with homosexuality, but the only reason I disagree is because of, it's really, I cannot really tell whether or not something like that can be considered natural or not, and it's not my place to say either. These days, openness about sex has gone too far. To a certain extent, I agree. To a certain extent. Not fully. Now, Now we've got to see where I stand in all of this, because if I'm looking at my last on my major one, which actually took me a good few hours. Is that I'm a right-wing libertarian. Well, where do I stand on here? Oh, surprise, surprise. A right-wing libertarian. So, at least I'm consistent. At least I'm consistent then in my position. Because I watched a video the other day of someone who calls themselves a left-leaning libertarian, and it turns out that they are extremely far left. And now, far left libertarian, I've always considered myself as a moderate right-wing libertarian, and this I will consider as a as a moderate position. Now, if I open up my political party's test and see where I stand on that, which is here. Because this one's more in depth, it actually this quiz is more in depth and more complex in terms of answering questions, and it's basing it on UK policies and not, what is a general perspective, like in this one. Because this one was a generalisation, it shows me it's more pretty much a centre right conservative, and where there's this one again, not necessarily centre right, but a moderate right. So I would say that is actually pretty accurate. I'm happy that I'm very consistent in my views. How long have I been recording? Hour and 20 minutes. But yeah, but at least you now know exactly who I am, where I stand in certain things. And I'm not basically, forgive my language, but basically I'm not a bullshitter. I'm not someone who lies. I'm always honest and know where I stand in my views. And I've always saw myself as a moderate right-wing Christian conservative. And I think by judging on these, on my social and morality sense, I am obviously religiously conservative. But on a political stance, I am more of a libertarian, because I don't believe that my views and values should dictate over someone else's life, because it's my life. I live my life the way I live, and others should do the same for themselves. Now, I would hope that other people will end up being more have similar views to me, but we live in a real world where everyone's got their own ideas and views and opinions. So, but at least I know that where I stand is that in these tests, completely different tests, but they come out with a similar precision or a similar kind of conclusion. So, yeah, I'm happy with my result, because it's actually consistent with what I've always been saying. But I know this video is probably a bit boring for you, so all I can say is, if you enjoy my videos, you can always like my videos, you can share my videos, you can even subscribe to my channels, The Christian Conservative Gamer. And if you want to help keep this channel advertiser free and uncensored, and basically give a big middle finger up to people like YouTube and China and the big tech companies in Silicon Valley, then the one thing I can say is become a patron. As little as $1 a month, but you pay into the other tiers, you get access to Discord and exclusive content. So there are benefits to being a patron. But other than that, thank you for watching. I've been a Christian Conservative Gamer, and I shall see you in my next video, which will be tomorrow. Thank you for watching.